Good evening. Tonight we're going to start out with public comment. Okay, is Gerald here? Oh, yes. Will you please state your name and your address?
So for Gerald Attachment 207 John Dorn Avenue, and my note that I had sent representing people up John Dorn Avenue. We're concerned about Governor Mifflin days, the noise from the bands, fireworks, especially this last year, which was twice as loud as previous years, and a lot of people have dogs. And my house is 4 blocks away in a straight line from the music, and my windows rattle constantly from the music. I have some solutions, and I would request a meeting with someone from the township, the school board, the Mifflin Days Committee, and discuss a number of the issues that everybody has. I know Governor Avenue parking is a big problem. I know people have tried to park in private driveways and created problems. I know that for a fact. And the noise from the band, the fireworks, and last month you had a breakdown for the police costs, but it wasn't made public. I'm thinking, or rumored, it was over 18,000, was it? That we shelled out the township.
I don't, do you know what the was on the
Well, they think that.
So next year will probably be about 20,000 with increases probably.
That number, it reflects total manpower hours,
Yes,
and so the more accurate number you would want to look at would be the overtime costs, because there would be an argument that the officers that were down there on the grounds, it's totally within Cumru Township, so that's part of our job, in reality, to police and patrol areas of the township. So the better number figure to look at to be more realistic and accurate would be somewhere in line of about $6,000 in overtime costs.
okay, something our taxpayers of this township is paying for. And if there was no government Mifflin days, those officers would be in other locations, not walking around that area. So I would suggest, or would like to see a meeting where we could sit down and discuss all these with them. So I can go back and tell my neighbors what came about. To discuss the costs, the noise, the bands. I have suggestions on what to do with the stage. I have suggestions what to do with the fireworks. I would like to meet with that committee to get a commitment from them and let them hear it and not just hear rumors or ignore the public or if that could happen. That's up to the commission. Thank you.
Yeah, just to address your question, point, Gerald, one of the things that jumped out at me was what you brought up as the police costs. So one of the things that I'm planning, and this won't be till next year because obviously Community Days doesn't happen until next year, but probably early next year, I'm going to do like a little road show to the other greater Governor Mifflin townships and ask them to assist with the policing of that so that we're not putting so much overtime towards that. Hopefully they can. And Chief Winchester has tried that in the past unsuccessfully, but that's not a combination of Chief Winchester by any means, but I'm just trying to, I'll go from a different angle that maybe their boards can, try and assist us.
I wouldn't wait till next year. I'd start sooner. So if they have to pay out money out of their profits, if you can get their financial statement from Mifflin Days, so they know ahead of time that they may have to raise prices to cover our police costs. Because that's what some people want, is them to pay the police costs.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to go to them and ask for them. I'm just going to try to get the other officers to attend from other townships.
Right, Shillington,
Shillington, Brookmont, Moulton, Kentford. it kind of hurts to be already, right? Yeah.
Thank you. So that was the only public comment that was signed up. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yeah.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Baddoor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes. Starting with the police department, Chief Winchester.
Yes, good evening. The only thing I just wanted to touch base on will be our upcoming national event, which is National Night Out. It'll be August 5th at the Government Intermediate School. There won't be any fireworks. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. It's as the title indicates, it's a national event throughout the country, and the purpose is to draw the community and members of the community to interact and engage with police and local emergency services. So there won't just be police there. There will also be our fire department, a lot of fire police there. We're doing this in cooperation with Cumru Township and Shillington Borough. So they will have representatives from their emergency services there. And it should be a very good time. We're going to supply some refreshments via hot dogs and popcorn. And we'll have some drinks and some giveaways for the kids to enjoy. We'll have some games for anyone to enjoy. And I think that we hopefully will also have some in line with emergency services, possibly some public works vehicles there as well, to have all the children interact and again, just have a good time from 6 to 8 p.m. Interact with everyone that's there and involved and have some good engagement.
Sounds great. If there's nothing else with the police department, moving on to fire department, Chief Beam.
Good evening, Commissioners. At this point, I have nothing initiatives.
I would like to point out that Chief Beam was on the cover of the Sunday newspaper. So anybody had seen that article,
I missed that.
we can get you a copy. It's a bestseller right now. That's your
Administration, Gee, do you have anything?
As a follow-up to our last meeting, the refuse and SMP account notices went out that for a 30-day period of time until accounts may be sent to collection. We got out the letter slightly early, as you can see on the agenda, and the due date is August 29th. And as you can imagine, we're getting numerous phone calls. Some of the phone calls and complaints are very similar to last year. Stating that somebody never got a bill, but they did get the letter. There are also some other things like people actually coming in with both the letter and the original bill, and various other aspects. I did have an interview this morning with Spotlight PA talking about this issue and also talking about refuse collection generally, which is, I think, going to be percentage-wise going forward will be a higher increase relative to the current cost than even property tax or other things. It's something that seems to be taking leaps and bounds of increasing costs at other municipalities. And I know that we're going to dovetail into some of this later in this meeting. If the board has any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Bob McNichols with Public Works.
Evening. Sure many of you noticed we patched Welch Road from Church down to Cedar Top. The guys have been working on that for the last couple of days. We think that'll give us another maybe 10 years on that road. We put down about 550 tons of blacktop over the last few days. It was kind of brutal, but You can't put down blacktop in the winter time, so it is what it is. But it was pretty much all hands on deck. Both sewer crew and highway crew, and even the janitor who was driving the dump truck today, so. We'll continue to work on that, other patching projects around the township, there's some big one. And that's all I have to make.
Thank you. The solicitor report with Kelsey Frankowski.
Thank you. All I have tonight is, if the board remembers last meeting, you authorized me to advertise the traffic ordinance amendment that restricts truck traffic on Mountain Road. And also include the stop sign on Andover at Jefferson Road. That ordinance was advertised for adoption on July 20th, 2025. So I'm just looking for a motion, to adopt that ordinance if the board so desires.
I'll make a motion. Same wording.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Backdoor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
And just to clarify, local deliveries are still allowed. A neighbor is allowed to get their furniture or their appliances, but it's restricting truck traffic doesn't mean one will never see a truck. It's restricted to through traffic, but local deliveries are still allowed.
Good point. Moving on to commissioners, Greg.
Yeah, so one of the things that you've heard in the last couple of things, or at least numerous times from Gene, also from our consultants, is recreation, or what we're going to do with recreation here. So we kind of thought it over a little bit, and I talked to Alicia about it because I know Alicia's a proponent of recreation parks, outdoor spaces, and stuff like that. And we just kicked some ideas around. Basically, we could have gone routes where we've spent the money to build out our own recreation, maintain it annually, so on and so forth. But we can also go the route where we potentially look to partner with somebody that already has something. The Shillington Borough came up with part of the discussion. They have a pool, they have parks, pavilion areas, it's already set up, it's very centrally located. So the concept that kind of we've batted around a little bit is, hey, let's get together with Shillington and maybe we can talk about partnering with them on recreation that would allow our citizens to use their recreation stuff, the pool, the pavilions and whatnot, at the same rate that the Shillington folks do. What that looks like, whether they're open to it or not, I don't know, to be determined, but what we're running past the board tonight is if the board's okay with Alicia and I working on this together, to sit down with Shillington and see if we can work out something with them.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Something we need to vote on, or
Bigger scale, it's a fall camper.
And this fall, no, I know, from you, Greg, you have, the polls on election days, people are asking us about this, and this is when you brought up a number of times that, what we're doing, I think this is a great, hopefully, I think it'd be low cost way to get more recreational.
You're also going to talk about Flying Hills Trash.
yes, so Flying Hills trash situation. This is something that, as you see in the agenda, I guess Gene brought this up for, I don't remember how long ago it was that long ago at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there was a lot of discussions that were had with the folks from Flying Hills, numerous folks, plural, over the last several months to try and come up with some sort of way of getting all of Flying Hills automated. There were a number of different options we gave them. They could potentially put dumpsters out there. You could create centralized toter areas for folks to take toters out to that the automated truck could still come by and pick up. Long story short, is Flying Hills was not interested in doing those for various reasons, and they prefer the concierge route, which is effectively what you have today. And then you would just have to pay potentially higher costs than the rest of the township, who would be on automated collection. We don't know what the prices would be like yet at this point, but at this point, what we would have to do is go and create a separate refuse district, which is what was originally talked about back there. And it would just be for certain parts of Flying Hills. It wouldn't be the entirety of Flying Hills, because there are all parts of it that can be automated. Mostly the condos and the townhouses that would require the manual pickup. So I guess what we're going to talk about tonight is just the actual streets that we would look to do this on. Are we going to get into that level of detail, Gene?
I don't know if we necessarily need to. I had forwarded the exhibit that comes from Flying Hills Company itself. That is a spreadsheet of the different types and methods of refuse collection at the different types of units in Flying Hills. And that is an attachment on, and has been an attachment on our refuse bid specifications for at least the last 3 contracts. I think, Kelsey, telling me if I'm wrong, but I think all I would need is authorization to have a mapping district created, separating the curbside collection in Flying Hills, which is the singles and the cottages, away from all the other collection in Flying Hills, and the trash rooms, the trash sheds, the kitchen gardens, the little closets, and I forget what those are called, the ones on Muirfield, and all those different types of collection would end up being its own district. And then when we issue the bid specifications, those 2 different districts would be described in the bid specification, and the contractor would have to provide a price, and then that separate fee would, the appropriate units would be billed there, whatever that fee ends up being, and the other singles and other homes in Cumru would be billed the other fee, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah, I agree with that, that's true.
I thought we were gonna talk to women about having his own trash district, because he has it now for the apartments, and then include this new district that you're creating. And have women take care of that part. Because it's gonna be difficult to have. Right now, when people are not paying the bills, so now you're gonna have some people are paying, say, $300, and some people are paying $600. So. This would be better to put a women's hand and say, look, all those places that can't have automatic trash, you have to include that in with your apartment.
But he is going to explore that, but he wants to see what rate we can get and then what rate he can get. And then he'll pick the lower 2 rates.
The problem with that approach is pivoting, because our contract is 24, 25, and 26. So by June or July of 2026, we have to issue the bid specification. And do that too far ahead of time, or the prices won't mean a whole lot. And then we get a price back. And how do you write bid specifications that says to the contractor, you may not be collecting this, but we still need a bid for it. That's a tough
Let's
thing.
move forward with us then, because I don't foresee him being able to get a better rate for this. It's kind of where we landed in this, but he was just trying to hedge his bets, basically.
That's why Flying Hills was developed with some of the infrastructure it has. Everybody was hedging their bets, and then we're left with situations like St. Andrews where very difficult to get at some of the infrastructure. So, yeah.
Well, just one addition to your point. So there are townhouses with garages on at a couple different places that they have like mini driveways, basically. I think they could do automated still. So it's like part of Club, part of T, or actually by all of T, Wingfoot part of it, and then part of Medina. So we can potentially add them on the automated shift as well.
We'll probably have to do a field
That was good.
to look at that. But also my understanding is that Flying Hills HOA will not allow anyone to see a trash can. So there has to be at least a concession from Flying Hills administration that they're not going to send people citations.
Well, I mean, they're seeing them already on there, like in the single families, we have no option to put a trash can out there, cottages the same. And the same with the places I just named, there's no kitchen area on TV, for example. They get out just like the single families do. So I don't I don't know what they could do.
You'd have to ask a lawyer.
Well, it depends on their documents and what they're willing to enforce, based on what they're working.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like this is really an issue with trust, right? Like the HOA,
It's a big issue with the trust.
I mean,
I was being very kind and mature in my comments.
anybody wants to run for the board?
Yeah, my point, my point simply is that we just have to keep in mind that no matter what the township does with its contract, we certainly don't want to inadvertently put people in the fine.
Absolutely. It's something I'll run by with, and again, I'll go out there from them, in the not so distant future about something, and then we can talk about that.
Yeah, I think if they're on the manual list right now, and we're gonna say that they should be automated, I think we should have something in writing indicating that they're permitted to be automated and have them tracked out.
That's a good point you bring up, because one of the questions that he had then is, well, what does the universe look like? So to Gene's point, maybe there's a field trip, we check out these other things, and we effectively give them a list and be like, bing, 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 these are gonna be the ones that are automated, these are the ones that aren't.
Right, we've kind of changed the map. They already have.
Oh, yeah, and we'll actually get a GIS layer developed to reflect this. Because most people want a visual, they don't memorize the names of the street, whatnot. So we literally have to map it out. But I think we can use Flying Hill's own spreadsheet as ammunition again, so to speak, to use a little more aggressive language than I really need to. Because, you know, we can take their spreadsheet and regroup it. But yeah, I think, that's the way to do it. I don't see, the township being or the HOA, or the umbrella HOA being able to pivot enough to let Mr. Whitman choose. Mr. Whitman needs to go with the flow sometimes.
They said, Gene, you said you needed something authorized?
No, nodding heads, I think, to create the appropriate map, and at some point we'll do a field trips and go out and see some of these places.
Yeah, you'll just need official action once the bid specs get put out there.
Yeah, so most likely what we want to do is have the bid specs develop more like April, give the board a month or two to look at, really read them. Because I know a lot of times bid specs is a lot of boring language and, you know, but there's some real meat and potatoes in there. We have some of the most comprehensive bid specs for a refuse contract that I've run across, at least locally. And this is one that we're gonna really have to scrutinize. Thank you.
See,
Okay, last item, so on this one, at least both Andy and I, maybe some other folks got out to see the triangle in West Reading that Gene brought up in our last meeting. I went down and part of I had somewhat of a party, if you will, that joined me with some folks from West Reading and some folks from the Reading Clean City team to check out the area, kind of get everybody's thoughts, because the borders are very close there. It's not just Cumru and West Reading, Reading's borders are also very close there. Saw the area, took a look around, you know, Gene said it pretty well at the last meeting. It's a lot of unhoused encampments and so on and so forth down there. A lot of trash associated with those areas as well. And what we kind of heard from West Reading was that, you know, West Reading has been doing a lot of lifting, if you will, on this, not just from cleaning up the trash and whatnot, but also from like a fire perspective. There's a lot of fires that get set with these folks down here, and you know, they go and they have to put them out and so on and so forth. I think police from West Reading are down there all the time. Doesn't mean that our folks aren't down there, but it's just, I'm speaking from West Reading viewpoint. West Reading viewpoint is that they feel like they're doing a lot and they want other folks to come in and start helping, basically. So the proposal was that we kind of put together a committee, if you will, between the three municipalities, sit down and figure out both short-term and long-term solutions for this problem. So a short-term, you know, the proposal would be to get a group of folks from Cumru here. We would have to figure out who those folks would be. And then we would sit down with these other folks and start discussing ways to kind of remedy this together. But then also long-term, how are we gonna maintain this? Because this isn't something you go in and do once and then it just goes away. This is gonna be, a continual upkeep, if you will. So my request, at least from a commissioner side to the standpoint, was for Andy and I to work on this. But I think, in talking to the other folks, we would probably ask both Gene and Bob to get involved with this as well, if everybody is okay with that.
An advisory committee or what?
I don't know if advisory as much as like,
And this committee doesn't make any final determination from has to be from the board.
that's correct. Yeah.
I think it, and Chief Dean might not want me to say this right now, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Chief Dean was the head of public works in West Reading for 20 years. So if somebody knows the territory, it's Chief Dean. So I think we should have him involved. I did ask the police department to, because when there's a fire call, police get notified as well. So it was easy to ask the police to run off of the Cody's information system how many fires have occurred there over the last 10 years, and only 12 that our people have been called out for. I was erroneously assuming that most of those would be in winter for obvious reasons, but no, they're actually half and half. 6 in winter and 6 in summer, which I just found interesting personally. There are many calls to that area that actually have to do with 422. So it's one thing I would say, if somebody is expounding upon, oh, there's so much police action occurring here, you have to really sort out the numerous calls having to do with the right of way of 422, which overlays that area. Because when it gets registered in the reporting system, it references that triangle, but it's actually occurring on the bridge overhead. So just be careful if you're reading any lists of reports. It may or may not be related to the issues that we're really talking about, which is traffic. I have no idea how to address the actual human side of the situation. That is an issue much bigger than myself. But yes, we can certainly talk about this. The problem is very similar in this area as with South 9th Street. For those of you who may not know, South 9th Street is an area of the township that you can only get to through the city of Reading. You cannot get there. It's at the top of that map in green on the upper right-hand side, the nose of the upside down dead pig. That's South 9th Street. You cannot get there from the rest of Cumru Township. You have to go through the city of Reading to get there. And that is also a place where there are many issues having to do with traffic. So they're very, very tough areas for Cumru Township to deal with because the township was so both balkanized by the city of Reading and the other boroughs next to it.
I was just gonna add, so coming out of our last meeting, when we spoke about this, talked to Bob and I went out on a little field trip the next morning. We went to the triangle, walked the site, the driving company did it as well, and then Bob actually took me to West 9th Street, and just so people are aware, because this was quite shocking to me. You know where Beer Mart is on Route 10? If you're looking towards Reading, we essentially directly through Beer Mart, over the river, the mountain. That's what we're talking about. There's a big swath of land over there that is part of Cumru Township. It's completely uncontiguous, yet is managed as far as municipal responsibility goes by the township. So I think both of these parcels probably we need to find a long-term solution. They're problematic.
Yeah, to Andy's point, I look at it from a strategic standpoint, what's my kind of question, what's the strategic value that we still hold these parcels? I know there's tax revenue that comes with it, but for me, that's not necessarily a strategic reason to do it. And Gene sent that information out. For the triangle, it's about, I'm doing some rounding, but it's about $15,000 for us in tax revenue from an annual perspective. I didn't ask about North 9th Street, but I don't imagine that's very much either.
Most of South 9th Street is owned by, Birch Acre. There is one industrial entity up there, Empire Wrecking. And then there are a couple of privately owned parcels. But certainly First Nature is completely tax exempt. In regard to, the triangle near West Reading, there is one building there and two parcels, one building. And, the property owner is called Ria Properties. I had sent Dave some information today on that at his request. And, it's that, the assessment on that building that generates any tax revenue essentially. The Tomb Trail goes through that area on another parcel owned by Ria Properties. And of course, the right of way of 422 is there. And the right of way of 422 will be widened as PennDOT continues its design of the West Shore Bypass Improvement Project. And so that's actually going to increase the state influence over the light and air in that area.
In relation to the old Eshleman property up there in Redmond.
South 9th Street, yes, it's,
Is it that in Cumru?
yes. And the county commissioners, even though the main part of that house is not in Cumru Township, it's in the city of Reading, the county commissioners a number of years ago adopted a resolution that declares that that house and its parcel in its entirety is in Cumru Township such that they send their kids to the Governor Midland School District, but you cannot get there even from the city of Reading. The kids have to be picked up in Lower Allis Township. So, I don't know if there are any children living there right now. I have no idea. But, so both of these parcels have some really significant access issues. Certainly, talking is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with talking and trying to wrestle with these problems. As Greg pointed out, the issue is the long-term nature.
And I'm going to say something now. I'm not suggesting so that nobody gets panicked or anything. I'm not suggesting we actually do this, but just for my own knowledge, if we wanted to, I'm just going to make up something. If we wanted to give the triangle to West Reading and they wanted to take that over, what's involved with that?
The fight is the school district. That's going to be your fight.
What do you mean by that?
Governor Mifflin School District will not want to let go of that tax revenue. Now, they do, again, you have a solicitor here, make sure I'm not talking out of bounds here. The actual, transfer or moving of boundaries is up to the municipalities. And West Reading has requested this parcel back when Mr. Henry was president of the board. West Reading wanted this area and the board declined. But I think you might do the school district a courtesy to let them know what you're thinking.
Assuming that we could get West School District there, what are we talking there? Lots of legal work and arm wrestling and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking public hearings and agreements and, getting everything buttoned up in writing, and there's gonna have to be public hearings for sure. Because the residents of those parcels are gonna say.
Fortunately, in terms of permanent residents in the triangle of West Reading and Cumru Township, I do not know of any permanent residents. There are the transient residents, if you will, or unhomed individuals. But as far as I'm aware, there are no residents in the Cumru Township portion. There, of course, Ria Properties, the main property owner may have something to say about that. The other main property owner there is MetEd. I am unsure of how much MetEd would care about the old island station there. Because half of it is already in West Reading. There's only half of it in the township. As far as the Schuylkill River Greenways, who monitor the Tomb Trail, they will certainly have an interest, but whether they will actually intervene in any way, that's hard for me to imagine that they would intervene as long as the trail is still there. So I think that the main entity, for that would have an interest is real property.
So it maybe will play out on the South Main Street side. If there's a couple residents there, if the residents will come back and say, no, I don't want this to happen, is that scupper it or where do we go from there?
They can object. I have to look into the specific procedure, but there would be public hearings and you could object and potentially file appeals if they would decided to make the transfer happen anyway. But I can look into the procedure and give you a sort of a memo on exactly how it would work.
I don't choose to do like a ton of work on this, it's just kind of
It won't be a lot.
a brainstorm.
Yeah, well, that way you know exactly who could have a potential interest and object to it and what kind of power they would have to stop it. That way you can talk to. So I have no problem doing that. That's good for you.
Yeah, I think that would be a very good idea. I mean, I don't want, I don't think in the last.
No, it's working now.
Okay, oh, there we are, okay. And my chief, this is something I wanted to bounce off you, because certainly about urban situations pretty well. And these are just remedies that I thought of that you might need some feedback on. Additional illumination. Possibly installing video cams. And if necessary, high fencing. What are your thoughts?
So lighting up the area is always a concern. I guess logistically it would be the issues on getting the power up there, how we would be able to accomplish that, how much it would cost, all decisions.
Yeah, the cost, that's the other thing, and it wouldn't be just like an upfront, but then there'd possibly be maintenance of this as well. I was just putting this out there until we get some long-term solution. We need something, at least in the meantime, to have some kind of presence to discourage this. Don't you agree?
No, I do. The challenges with lighting up South 9th Street is just the geography of that location. People are aware that even if they're illuminated, they're still gonna be kind of out of the way and not seen. Again, that's not a horrible thing in lighting. I think it's a good thing. One of the things you could do is put temporary lighting up there. I mean, you'd have to talk about gas and powering and things like that, but I'm not quite sure exactly how effective that would be long term.
Yeah, this would be a short term.
The camera system, I mean, cameras are great. They're good for capturing events that have occurred. But that's all it can do, and it can easily be overcome by disguises, hats, this and that.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment to, one thing that kind of surprised me when I went over there with Bob is the area we're talking about. If you look at that map, it's quite small. And relative to the township, it is quite small, but this isn't something that we can throw two lights on and solve the problem. There is a lot of, I mean, I had the exact same thought. I asked Bob about it too. I asked about cameras, but I think it's a challenging area. There's a lot of tree cover.
I think
There's a lot
South 9th Street is like 3,300 feet long. And that number sticks in my head from when Representative Guzman got us the grants for.
Probably, would you have to do that? Couldn't you just do the area with the housing?
Are you talking about South 9th Street?
Well, I'm talking about with the triangle.
With the two very
Yeah, I was talking about triangle. I mean, South 9th Street is massive.
Yeah, that's huge.
Triangle, it's.
At South 9th Street, I think they dump during the day. I mean, I can tell you stories that aren't appropriate for this crowd, but a lot of stuff that happens up there in the daytime. People enjoy the sun. The running triangle is a different story. And it's, you talked about fences. It's complicated because you got those two bridges going. You've got the 422 bridge and you got the trail bridge. And maybe you need to revisit, I think I had you over there years ago, but maybe it's time to revisit it with this different thought in mind, so.
Yeah, when I was there, just looking at it, I don't know how we can actively sort of, I don't want to speak for you, chief, like police that area in like a persistent way without having somebody there 24 hours a day. There's too many nooks and crannies and places for people to be. It's under bridges, there's trees, there's steep embankments, there's tuckaways under these big bridges. It's not a simple.
Yeah, if they wanna get there, definitely they can, but it's like anything else, you know, you have officers alongside of the road for what reason? They were present, right?
Correct.
Alright.
Yeah, and with policing, the way the advancements that have come with policing, the way we police here in Cumru Township, we put officers where the issues are, where the problems are, where the potential problems are.
And how do you always know that? You always get it right.
I know, I'm really very smart. No,
Sure.
but it actually, you know, it's funny you say that, it's all scientific and actually analyzing the data and looking at trends, but that's why we track repeat locations, victims and offenders. But yeah, putting somebody there is, for lack of a better explanation, it would be a horrible waste of resources. Now, having people go there, that's something we have to do. And again, we do it when we can. But we police smart with the cops where they need to be, and that's one of the adages I tell my officers, that, you know, if someone suggests that, hey, I never see a cop around my neighborhood, well, that's a good thing, because when you start seeing this, that means there's an issue in your neighborhood. So, and I know with lighting underneath that, the triangle, PennDOT had something to say about that, last time that was explored. In fact, I was still in Reading when that suggestion was floated. They put the kibosh on that meeting.
And somebody did put some solar powered lights on the trail
The greenways people.
15, 18 years ago. And the problem then is access. How do you get back there and trim the vegetation around them and things like that? You can't just take the bucket truck back there and trim the trees. You can't get the boom mower back there. So there's lots of challenges to all that stuff. I'm not discounting everything you're saying, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, I guess to me, it's like both what you're saying, Bob, and what you're saying, Jim, and clarify, I'm certainly not advocating we put a cop there 24/7. I agree. I think that'd be terrible waste of resources because people, you know, our residents don't live there. So, but I think the problem, I think we're both sort of getting at is like obviously these towns are not a business, but it's like return on investment. We're gonna bring a bucket truck out there and bring trees and bring the crew out there and mow and bring more police presence out there. Like to what end and what's the return on that investment that we're getting?
We only have certain options realistically. And that, you know, if you can't, if you're concerned all about cost, and that's fine, I understand we have to reach the responsibility of the community. But then you're looking at, I'm gonna move.
No, I'm not only concerned about cost. I agree. I mean, I think it is a problem. I think the problem is complicated.
Well, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a complicated one. But the other one I was thinking of, this is a little groups and I'm gonna like, he said no. But see, we don't have the township, we don't have the papers to go through.
No.
Well, I'm.
That's, when there have been allusions to that kind of thing in the past and prior boards, it's very difficult sometimes to determine who's a vagrant. How do you define a vagrant? That's one thing. For example, I live in a neighborhood where the street is actually a circle. And there are people who use that for exercise. They walk around the circle all the time. And if you would meet me or some of my neighbors in sweats and sneakers, and you'd wonder, are we vagrants? I mean, so and of course, we're not carrying ID on us, just take a walk around the neighborhood. So that's one of the principal difficulties. What is a vagrant? And then, of course, you get into the issues that we all are concerned with is, well, you know, the United States of America, I can just take a walk. So I understand your question. It's a very difficult thing to wrestle with. And I think that's why cities all over the United States are stressed.
This is where the Clean City Team for Writing Center comes in. That's one of their responsibilities is the unhoused population in Reading. They literally have an entire process. They have ordinances around it. They bring in social workers, police. I mean, it's pretty detailed out as to how they handle this. And they literally go through these encampments every other week. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, every other week they're going through and doing this. So they can lend their expertise as to how to deal with that aspect of it. And another thing, just to kind of piggyback on Dave's point, this is pretty sprawling too. And the borders are very choppy over there. So as we were walking through, they were like, okay, this part of the encampment, this is in Cumru. This part of the encampment over here, that's part of West Reading. This part of the encampment, that's part of Reading. So that's why we kind of formed this triad, if you will, here, because we're all gonna have to work together to figure out this, because if all we do is worry about the Cumru aspect of it, it doesn't really solve anything. It just kind of moves it.
I think it's really circle back to the initial. One of the initial premises is the potential to talk to others. Or get out from the responsibility of managing this. Well, one thing just for the sake of curiosity, Kelsey, or Gene, or whomever, the idea of, I know we talked about this, we wanted to redraw borders and sort of just carve it off into what's Reading. Humor me on the idea of perhaps trading part of Cumru Township.
Again, that would be, it would be up to the municipalities, so I have no idea what they would say, what areas we would be interested in swapping.
But in terms of like the legality, is it the same process essentially? It's just the.
Yeah, it's the same process, it's still moving boundaries and having an agreement. Yeah, it's the same process as if we were just giving it away versus swapping.
I think that, doing an analysis is frankly what the board should have done years ago, at that time when West Reading was asking us in writing for that triangle. And just to have a basis of knowledge of what's required, I think it's a great idea to do that legal analysis. And I'll provide as much of the tax revenue information as possible. With West Reading, I have a hard time imagining them wanting to swap with me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. The reason I think you sell it to them for $1. Well, I think you're sort of getting to my point is that when I went there, I was surprised by what I saw in many ways. One of which was that this is like a net positive tax base. There's a substantial commercial enterprise that's on that property. It's not just an unhoused encampment.
Right.
This unmaintainable property.
And the building assessed at over $1 million.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so and I would venture to guess, fully guess, that to the township's tax base, that piece of the township is a net positive in terms of what we expend on it versus what we get back from it.
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah, I would guess.
Yeah.
We could look at and try another more, real estate oriented approach, and that would be a carve out. Correct? We would do a carve out there and just portion that off, and we, of course, I don't know if the other side whoever is gonna want is, but that's just a thought.
Well, that's sort of where my head's at, and I think maybe where you were going too, is like. There's something to bargain, but in that there is there is value to the parcel. So it's not like we'd just be saying, just take this from us. Like whoever else is saying, maybe we can figure something out because there is value. And for a municipality that's actually contiguous with that parcel, there might be added value.
And it's already the problem.
Yeah.
They're saying, so.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other things to keep in mind here, because I believe the real properties is fenced off. I can tell you that managed property is fenced off with barbed wire. Okay, and these encampments are not taking place on those properties. Okay. So where does some of the responsibility come back on? You got a trail going through there. Please remember that next time somebody says, hey, I want to put a trail in, who's going to maintain it? Because Bob's right, there's a couple lights back there, but you know what? They're really like area lights, just to take a little bit of the darkness away. They're not lighting up like a stadium, okay? So the problem lies under 422, which is a PennDOT right of way. Okay, I don't know how the fishing dock ties into what is the old Isler station. But that fencing comes down to the bottom there, and there's a double gate in that section.
Just interrupt you for a second. The fishing dock is an ADA accessible fishing dock. And when we talked about this last time, when PennDOT years and years ago, it was the only ADA fishing dock for, I forget how many miles up and down. So that was the big sticking point also with that fishing dock.
And I'll also add, anything you put there in of material value. I can tell you, and I'll guarantee you, it will grow legs. So you can put up 20 foot high fencing with constantine wire, barbed wire, whatever you want to put on it. A pair of wire cutters or cable cutters at Harbor Freight is $6. And I can tell you that because all the railing disappeared down there, and I can tell you where that went. So anything you want to put down there of value, even if it's 20, 30 feet up on a pole, they're gonna find a way to get it down. And that sounds harsh, but this is the reality of where this sits. It's not on the private property because I believe the real properties have kept things pretty cleaned up. The last time I was down here, they had some major issues with the pump station, which goes across the creek. And the trail borders our property. And then it comes in and you have the old railroad crossing, which I believe is owned by the trail people now. But really, the majority of this problem, and it's not just under this overpass. In Cumru Township, you have it under the 10th Street Bridge on both sides. Any of those bridge abutments going up 422, you have it. And whether people want to admit it, it's either on there or it's in actually the right of way of PennDOT. So where does some responsibility fall back on these other entities?
Well, gee, what are these other entities? What are these other entities? How are they getting?
They don't. And again, they talked about this, and I'm joking aside, Bob's right with this, the handicap fishing dock. It's all about keeping access to that. But if they enclose all of 422 overpass, they still keep access to that. Now you just created another nightmare, and I'll speak for the other chief, about what happens in underpasses and tunnels. You don't think you're gonna have people living in there too? It's very hard. Now, I dealt with this for many years, 6+ as the public works director over there, and another couple of the assistant, and then over 20 in the department itself. And on the fire side, and on the EMS side. So again, it's not the properties themselves that cause this problem, it's under the right of way of 422.
Also, if you can remember one more.
Maybe.
I'm not suggesting we do this, I just want to scratch the itch in my brain. Could we sue PennDOT? I realize it's a bit of a ludicrous question, but I mean, if it's incurring like damages or impact to the township, is there any legal?
I don't see any legal basis to sue PennDOT for this issue. But what I can tell you, what I will do is I will put together a legal analysis of what exactly a roadmap would look like to moving boundaries, if you're swapping land or giving it away. And I think that's, can start with that. And if Jean could put together a revenue analysis in what that would look like, I think it would be helpful in that way. The board can see if they want to approach any of the other municipalities involved.
Yeah, but still, gee, in during your preparation, can you do a carve out? Can you prepare one with a carve out? Just this property off, and because then not include roller casters or whatever the other great properties, service casters.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
I'd like that to be added in.
We could, it just wouldn't be.
The hard sell.
It's a hard sell for keeping the good stuff and just to good pass.
Yeah, because that's what essentially they did with South Main Street.
You're gonna exactly, so we're gonna give it back.
Yeah, and the also the Triangle and Angelica Park, but that,
But there may be some nonprofits that might be involved, Animal Rescue or others that mining area that they could crowd out what's there now. And if they get it for
I
nothing,
think you're forgetting this is private property.
I thought it was the township.
No,
No, it's
not
in the
township
township, but
property.
it's
In the
not
township,
township
it's private
owned.
property.
Oh, it's not township owned.
no, it's in the township, but not township owned.
But your earlier point, you have to get government and school district involved with it also. Because they're not just gonna let that revenue disappear.
I don't know if that's required by statute, that's what the legal analysis will tell us, but certainly it would be polite to let them know, and certainly the school district would be more interested in a swap of territory. I don't know if the board recalls, or all the board recalls, a few years ago, that the state statute was amended to make it easier, I believe, to move boundaries with respect to parcels that are divided by a municipal boundary. And we had received a communication from Robeson Township. There are several parcels, especially in Robeson, but I think a couple with Brecknock, where the municipal boundary actually goes through a property. And Robeson had forwarded to several properties that they wanted to be in Robeson Township totally and not in Cumru. And I understand why they were asking, but the issue came down to, well, what is there to horse trade? Because it does affect revenue, and in that case, you also have two different school districts involved. And the school district, Governor Mifflin's school district weighed heavily through appropriate communication channels that they were against the idea of giving Robeson Township properties to Valley without getting it.
And we'll certainly keep the school district in the loop on all this kind of stuff. Just to kind of round this out, is everybody okay with kind of what we talked about in terms of people? Myself and Andy, Jeans, Chief Dean, and Bob representing the township.
Thank you.
Greg, if you have nothing more, then we'll be moving on to the executive session.
All right, we just had an executive session where we discussed several matters of litigation and a couple of personnel matters, and there's only one action that is stemming from that executive session. I'm looking for a motion to extend FMLA for the public works employee pending evaluation from his doctor.
Second,
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bachelor,
yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes. Okay, and reminders for the commissioners meeting for August and September, 8/19 at 7 p.m., a regular meeting, 9/16 at 7 p.m., a regular meeting, 9:30 at 7 p.m., a fifth Tuesday meeting. Planning Commission is August 4th at 6 p.m. and Steering Committee, September the 3rd, Governor Mifflin High School cafeteria at 6 p.m. And there was nothing for the zoning board at this time.
We haven't received any zoning hearing board applications, however, keep in mind the deadline has not been passed yet, so if we do receive anything, it'll appear on your G drive, but at the moment, we don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to the front?
Motion to adjourn.
I second.